Fine wife, you don't want to have sex with me? I've got lots of women who think I'm sexy and attractive. I'll just go get it somewhere else. Stop. Just stop. That mindset is destroying you and it's destroying your marriage. It is self-sabotaging. Welcome back to the Secure Husband Podcast. Bruce Abbott, certified professional coach and founder of SecureHusband.com. I'm going to bust out a little tough love on this episode because I sift through hundreds of comments basically saying this one thing: I will just go get it somewhere else. Here's the deal. I want you to, first of all, let's have a little reality check, a little radical acceptance. I want you to ask yourself a very honest question. In the last 30 days, in all the places that you're at, whether you're at the office, at the gym, wherever, how many women are coming up and seducing you or making the moves on you? I want you to think in your mind, be honest. Now, I'm not going to say what I think that answer probably is. And I know I'm going to have 2 or 3 guys who are going to be like, well, actually, I did have one come in. That's not the point. The point is, let's work with reality here. You're in a sexless marriage. You're lonely. You're frustrated. You feel rejected. I get that. I get it. But this idea of being 1 foot in, 1 foot out is doing more harm than good to you and to the marriage. If you are one of these guys that feels like, I will just go get it from somewhere else. And I will say most of the guys that say that never act on it, but that thought is there. It's an option that's constantly in the back of your mind. That mindset, it's not going to help your marriage. It's not going to fix your loneliness. It's nothing but self-abandoning. And in the end, it will make everything worse if you do go out and you act on it. Let's talk for a moment about this idea of being all in or all out. Living 1 foot in, 1 foot out of your marriage keeps you stuck. It keeps you in this painful place. Before I start to go down this path, am I saying that you have to stay in a sexless marriage? No, you don't. But what you need to do is you need to either give it the opportunity to heal by working on yourself, becoming more grounded, being able to do the things that potentially gain back emotional trust from your wife. Or if that's something that is not going to be possible, I've talked about this before, you may have to make those tough decisions, and it may be that this relationship just is not going to work. But the thing about a sexless marriage, in most cases, these are good men married to good women who have a dysfunctional pattern here. The relationship container is damaged. You have 2 people with your own individual containers in there, and those are made up, again, of your childhood wounds, your defense mechanisms, all of those survival strategies that you grew up with that I've talked about over and over in these podcasts. If you have damage, you never have one healthy, perfect partner and one damaged partner. You're always going to have 2 wounded people, and the relationship becomes wounded. The idea of a sexless marriage, I've talked about this before, is it's beyond the physical part of sex. It is the connection. It is how men connect with our wives. Otherwise, you're just roommates. That's the comment that's always comes up. We're just roommates. You understand how this is not just physical, that there's emotional components to it. It's your way that you connect with your wife. Because of your upbringing, it also may be your identity. And as we talked about in the very first podcast of this series, because then you start questioning, am I desirable? Am I wanted? Am I loved? And yes, you question all of that. If you're lying right there next to your wife who's supposed to be your partner and you feel completely alone, I get it. But when you reach this point where you're like, fine, I'm going to go get it somewhere else. That comes from pain. It comes from frustration. It comes from unmet needs. I'm not going to shame you for feeling that, but I am going to, like I said, bust out some tough love, and I'm going to challenge what you do with that, because this idea of going out and having an affair can make things way worse, and it doesn't help solve the original problem of getting your needs met and not self-abandoning. Because you can leave a lot of damage in your wake from this. It's in a lot of the comments I get. It's in many of the conversations I have with my guys that I coach. They'll say something along the lines of, I've been thinking about it. I'm not getting anything at home. Why shouldn't I? And you can hear the justification in the question when they ask that. I hear the hurt behind it, the pain, the rejection. It's something that has gone through my mind when my wife and I were in a really bad place. The question that I usually ask my guys is, what do you think that's going to give you? What do you think that will bring? Usually, of course, the first thing they said was sex, finally. But beyond that, what is it that you think it's going to bring you? Relief or something along those lines. For how long? And how much damage are you willing to cause if you've got a family, a career? And if you're married to a good woman, you guys just have the dysfunctional pattern. A lot of the guys that I work with, once you get yourself more secure, you start to break the dynamic. The wife comes back. The dysfunctional pattern has a chance to break. But what happens if you just go nuclear on that and start to have an affair? A dysfunctional marriage does not give you a license to cheat. Hey, you probably had some pretty rough behaviors in your marriage that may have caused ruptures, may have damaged emotional trust, harmed that feeling of emotional safety. So your behaviors, does that give your wife a license to cheat? You probably wouldn't think so, would you? Same thing here. The sexless marriage, as frustrating and as lonely as it can be, I get it, does not give you a license to cheat. Two wrongs don't make a right. It just creates more damage and more pain. It creates more broken trust. And any chance of the marriage repairing is gone. And whenever I reply to comments like this online, the response that gets thrown back at me is, she's the one that created the situation. I didn't start this. I'm not the one who's rejecting. I'm just responding. I hear it all the time. The reality is you're still responsible for how you show up. You are still responsible for your integrity, no matter what she does or doesn't do. It's the story you tell yourself to justify it. Because there's always a story. Well, if she won't meet my needs, I've got to get them met somewhere. It's not really cheating because we're basically roommates. Those stories feel convincing. They feel logical, but they're coming from a place of avoidance, avoiding the real conversations, avoiding the real decisions that have to be made. Because if you cross that line, and we talked about this on the Boundaries series about sexual integrity, setting a boundary, look in the mirror. Do I want this to be done towards me? Because this matters. When you step outside the marriage, you might get that relief, that dopamine hit of sex. But now you still have the same situation at home, but now you've also got secrecy, you've got guilt, you've got stress, compartmentalization. Now you're hiding things, you're managing lies. Even if you don't think you're going to feel guilt, most men do, because it goes against who they want to be. A cheater is not a man who lives in integrity. It's not if it's going to blow up in your face, it's when. Just think about your sexless marriage. Why is it there to begin with? It's because you have two insecure people operating with their protections up. If you've exhibited behaviors that have destroyed emotional trust, that's fragile right there as it is. Even without an affair, you've already got resentment and distance and disconnection. What happens when you add betrayal to that? It's going to collapse whatever foundation may be left. And I've talked with many men who did this exact thing. They thought it would make them feel better. They thought it would fix something that they're missing, that would fill the gap. It didn't. Because now they had the original problem plus new problems. Another layer of stress, damage. Now they're not just dealing with a sexless marriage, they're dealing with broken trust. All of this starts to blow up in their face. And there's going to be guys that are going to send me a note that are going to say, the relationship it needed to end anyway. End it with integrity. You end the relationship. But just remember what that feels like. That broken trust. That's so much harder to rebuild. And again, I get it. You're lonely. You're frustrated. You're at a place of desperation. You're thinking, I just need sex. But again, you think you're getting your needs met, but you're not, because it's not sex that you're really looking for. What you actually need is connection and feeling wanted, feeling desired. Yeah, an affair might give you that moment of validation, but it's not going to give you real connection. It's not going to give you safety. Sure as hell isn't going to give you peace. You got to look at this from the long term and ask yourself, let's say I have this other woman. It's something you have to think about. A lot of the women who married men get involved with are married themselves, and maybe they're lonely. But if this woman is your soulmate, my true partner, how comfortable are you getting in a new relationship with somebody who you know will cheat? Well, there's that. But let's come back. That's a whole nother podcast. But let's come back to this idea of living 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So this is how you get unstuck. You don't go outside the marriage for sex. Now, I get it. You may be checked out and you're thinking about it and considering options. But when you do that, you're not showing up fully in your marriage. Now, notice when I say showing up fully in your marriage, that's being present, that's being grounded, that's being communicative of your needs. You're not overfunctioning or chasing, but you are showing up fully by setting boundaries, communicating clearly, leading, doing the real work. And I get it. That stuff seems harder than let me just go and get it from somewhere else. But you got to get your needs met the right way to feel fulfilled as a man. And I can already see just some of the comments that are going to come on here. But the idea that I'm trying to get across is if you have any chance of wanting your marriage to improve, the real work is getting honest about your needs. Stop self-abandoning, start leading yourself. Stop over-pursuing, communicate your needs clearly. That creates emotional safety, clarity, consistency. That's attractive to your wife. And again, if your needs cannot be met in this marriage without you abandoning yourself, then you have a decision to make. You can stay and accept it, or you can leave. But when you're in the marriage, you're in the marriage. Stepping outside the marriage isn't a solution. It's avoidance. And I just think about the guys who are like, oh, I've got opportunities. I could do it. And that's what I was getting at the beginning of this podcast. Do you really? Well, there's that one girl at the gym. She smiles at me when I smile at her. Okay. Is she being friendly? She's being nice. Doesn't necessarily mean she wants to be your affair partner. I hear from men all the time that do this sort of thing. Radical acceptance goes both ways. Because I've talked to many guys who have gone out, had an affair, the marriage blows up, the affair doesn't go anywhere, and now they're twice as lonely with twice as much stress. Now they've got kids that won't talk to them. They're destroyed now financially because they could have maybe had an amicable divorce if the relationship came to an end, but now she's coming out guns a-blazing. It never ends well. Never. If you're thinking this, I need you to change that mindset. I need you to tell yourself, I'm not going to go that route. Not because for any other reason other than I respect myself. Granted, the marriage, it's in trouble right now. Got it. But if you can be grounded and act from a place of self-respect and integrity, then in the long run, you will be more at peace. I always say in this podcast, this is not about saving your marriage. It's about bringing you a life of peace. It's about being the man that you're meant to be, that you want to be. It's bigger than your marriage. Who do you want to be? And that's really being a grounded, honest, clear-headed man, even if it's hard. So this 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing, you got to choose. All in or all out. All in means you do the work, you show up fully, you lead. All out means you make a clean decision. You don't betray your wife. You don't destroy emotional trust, maybe with your kids or your family. No. But you make a clean decision one way or the other. Going and getting it somewhere else, it's just going to drain you. So this wasn't exactly part of my series that I had planned, this podcast, as part of the Sexless marriage, but I'm just getting these comments every single day. Well, that's why I'm going to get it from somewhere else. That's why I have an affair partner. That's why I chose to get it outside the marriage. I get it. But that's not the path forward. That's not going to fix anything. It's not going to give you what you actually need. It's going to cost you more than you think it will. I understand why it's there. I get it. But all in or all out of the marriage. Don't be half in, half out looking for sex somewhere else. I encourage you to get rid of that mindset. Until you can get rid of that mindset, you're going to stay stuck because you're always going to feel like I've got to hang on to this and I've got to hang on to that. There's a great analogy that somebody was telling me. Think about when a monkey is moving through the jungle, swinging from tree to tree. That monkey has to let go of one branch, one vine, before it can grab onto the next. And it's the same thing with this situation. You can't hold on to both. You either need to hang on to this vine and without self-abandoning, help build emotional trust, work on the marriage, or if it's something that is not going to happen, then you need to let go and move on. Living in the middle there is not going to work, and it never will. Like I said, this wasn't exactly an episode I had planned, but comment after comment after comment. I hope it does help you. If you're thinking this thought, I hope this podcast maybe got you to think about it a little bit more. If you're finding this podcast for the very first time and you don't subscribe, hit that subscribe button. And I encourage you, if you're a regular listener, would you go and give me a review? It helps the algorithm share this podcast to even more men who are struggling. And if you need accountability, if you need help just to be able to think straight of what am I doing with all of this, with a sexless marriage? How do I navigate all of this? How do I not self-abandon? How do I get my needs met? How do I get my needs met without having to go outside of the marriage? I encourage you, visit securehusband.com. Sign up for that free 30-minute consultation. It is just a conversation, low pressure. We just talk and see if there's any way I can help you out with one-on-one coaching. And I'll see you on the next Secure Husband podcast. Thanks for listening.